Hello and welcome to the Nat Coombs Show presented by Paddy Power Fantasy. It is Saturday, gang, and that can only mean one thing, right, OG?
Saturday morning Disney, I would have thought.
Mate, Saturday, one thing. We're week 7 now. We've been doing this for 7 weeks.
Feeling a little bit crook from the night before.
Daily Fantasy.
Daily Fantasy podcast is out, that's right.
Fantasy podcast. Good to have you with us. And if you're watching us on ESPN UK's YouTube channel, even better. And if you're listening to us and you're not doing that, head on over.
Get on over there.
Because he's got the threads on again, the OG.
Yeah, and this is actually another repeated number. But what you won't notice from the time before, it was tucked in and I had a tight cowboy denim jacket over the top. So you wouldn't have actually been able to see it in its glory. So I thought I'll bring it out as an individual piece today.
Was that the double denim day?
No, it could have been one of the two. In week 7, we've already had 2 double denim days. That says a lot.
When did you start raiding your mum's wardrobe? What age?
I would have been at least 6 or 7. Yeah, but you know, you got to start early to
fly
start
the flag even now.
Exactly.
Loving that. Now you know how Daily Fantasy works by now, surely, gang. But if you don't, well, OG, explain it for the newbies.
Yeah, so of course the scoring system is the same as ESPN's, but here's the catch: you do have a budget of £60,000 to spend on your team. So every week, of course, as you should know by now, you can change. But if you don't know, you can change your lineup completely from the week before. But you do have to stay within that budget. So of course, every player is worth a certain amount.
Every week is a brand new week, is what you're saying.
It's the best.
It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. Let's get into it. Then week 7, we're starting with our stack, a quarterback wide receiver pairing that we think is going to do some damage this weekend. Who are you going for?
Well, I took a gamble quite early on in I think it would have been week 2, week 3 when...
You're a gambling kind of guy, right?
Yeah, no, exactly right. But when the Minnesota Vikings took on Green Bay, I backed Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen. Didn't quite work out. But this week, I am backing Kirk Cousins and Stefon Diggs because the two of them last weekend, they were elite. So going into this week, Kirk Cousins is rated £7,300 and Stefon Diggs 6.8. And 6.8 is actually a really good margin.
That's a steal for Stefon Diggs.
I think for Stefon Diggs, because it was a clear breakout game for him. We've all fantasy owners just must be, backing him, and he's struggled to get into this system. And also Kirk Cousins has been, struggling to be able to throw the ball, but he was elite, completed 22 of 29 passes.
Last couple of weeks, ever since they called him out, he's been back on track.
No, exactly right.
Are you a little bit worried about this Detroit secondary?
Not particularly. Darius Slade, there's question marks. He's had limited training.
It's his hammy, right?
It's his hammy that's the question mark at this stage. Look, we see it all the time when players are limited to training or they don't indeed train as just a precaution. But there might be some genuine truth into this. But looking at the statistics from last week, his breakout game, over 30 fantasy points, he was elite. I'm backing them to do it again.
Okay, it's a logical play there. I'm staying in the same game, but I'm going the other way. I'm going Stafford and Kenny Golladay.
Oh, I like
How about
it.
that? I'm adding a bit of jeopardy to this week's episode, OG. Stafford 7-3, Golladay's 7-1. 121 yards they connected for last week against the Packers. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm surprised at the line, actually. Look, it's 2 strong defenses.
Sure.
So the line makes sense that it's in the low 40s, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to go bigger than that. I think Minnesota are going to put up points, and I think Stafford's going to air it out to play catch-up. So I think there are going to be a lot of points on the board. They've connected well. It's his go-to guy. I think it's a must-win game for Detroit as well. I like Stafford and Golladay.
That's the beauty of the NFC North because, of course, when Detroit lost on the weekend, it was the difference of Detroit going first or last. Right. It was incredible. So it's an incredibly tight game for the two of them. But it's a very controversial call that you've made there.
Bit of value in there as well. That's the thing. Because the stack, I guess the temptation is to chuck all your money in. And it makes sense because you've got to make sure you get that tandem right. But if you can shave a bit of value there, you can spend it elsewhere. And what is this? Let's do the maths here. 14,400 for the pair. That leaves you a fair amount of room for you go big pick and elsewhere, of course.
Well, that's exactly right. It's totally up to you as to how you actually want to physically spend your money. I personally don't always go for, like a Patrick Mahomes, for example. If you go for a stack...
That would be a bad move right now, I guess.
No, exactly right. But if you go for a big-name player with a big-name receiver, it's very costly and sometimes just doesn't work out. So just try and spread your money, I say.
Like it. Who are you going big on?
Well, I'm going big on the main man, Saquon Barkley.
What?
He's back. He is back now.
Brave call.
He might not 100% be back, but I think
Wait
no.
a
But
minute,
listen
what?
to me.
Okay.
If you want to go big, you have to risk it to get that biscuit. He is worth £8,600 going into this week. He's hinted on social media. The team has suggested that he's more than likely to play, and I think if if he does play, which I think he will.
He's going to start, he'll erupt, is what you're saying.
Exactly right. So I'm just 100% backing him on this one.
It's a nice matchup against Arizona. Look at that, the limitations of that offense. I think I can see that going, but that's a boom or bust pick as far as I'm concerned for 8-6.
Yeah, no, it is. Totally understand, but that's the theory, or that's the excitement behind a go big pick. It's not just necessarily go big because the player might be costly. It's go big because of what you believe they can do. And it's tough with the Barkley who's been out for some time. You've obviously don't really have many current statistics to go on or fantasy points per game average to go on at this stage, but it's a gut instinct that he will come back this week and he will go big himself.
I like it. Okay, I'm going Aaron Jones.
Perfect.
For my go big pick for a couple of reasons. Again, a bit of value here. 7-6 for Jones.
Nice.
Up against Oakland, it is a banged up receiving core for Green Bay. So I think they're going to be leaning a lot on Aaron Jones in this game. 8 touchdowns this season. Admittedly, got half of those in one game, but the running game...
Hey, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It all count. The running game clearly really established there. I think they're going to be leaning him a lot in this game. I still fancy Green Bay for the win. I know a lot of people are tipping the Raiders for the upset here. I think Green Bay get the win, and I think they're going to do that by relying on Aaron Jones to get the ground game going. At 7-6, considering he's averaging over 18 fantasy points a game, I think that is great value. And I'm going with Aaron Jones.
It's an interesting point you make there, because something that I've been keeping my eye on, specifically on social media, that people are funny about a good player but playing against a team where they feel like that team will lose. Exactly what you said there. But an individual player, can have an absolutely blinding game. So please don't be put off if you feel that team won't actually win, because you quite often see that a quarterback, for example, might even actually have a blinder, but they'll lose.
Particularly if they're in a hole and he's chasing yards, it's junk time yards, and you're picking those up. And
it's that different dimension again between real and fantasy.
The junk time dimension. Yeah. I love that. All right, so far so good, OG. So far so good. Yeah. Bargain picks. This is when it gets a little bit tougher. Picks that are 6K or under. That's our water margin for this. So who are you looking at?
Yeah, that is a rough margin, but I've gone Keyshawn Johnson, £4.6 thousand. That is incredible, because as we said, anything under 6 is pretty good. And generally I like low 5s, but sort of that mid-range 4, that's incredible value.
Steal.
So going into this week, admittedly, you presume he's probably going to have a regular role. He's certainly not taken over the league by any stretch of the imagination, but he will be there, I believe, for a lot, at least 80% of the snaps.
Value for lower on in that,
exactly right.
On your roster, on your fantasy roster. Like it. I'm going Matt Breida.
How much is he?
5-6.
Okay.
So he's a bit chunky, a bit more than your pick, but still well under that 6K threshold. Against Washington, I like the matchup there. He's sharing carries with Tevin Coleman, so that is obviously why you're getting value there.
Yep.
But I think that, again, against Washington, I think San Francisco is going to win it comfortably. And I think the run game will factor reasonably significantly. You look at the way this offense is playing. They've got Kittle as one of their primary receivers. Garoppolo is looking at protecting the ball, not necessarily winning games, but not losing games. They've established the ground game. So it's quite a balanced offense. I can't see any reason why that would change against a pretty inferior Washington side. So I like Breida to pick up some points. He's averaging 12.38 fantasy points per game this season. I think that represents a lot of good value. I can't see any reason why he won't be there or thereabouts in this game.
Yeah, I think anywhere between the 10 or 15 fantasy points, if you're paying under 6,000 for a player, that's excellent.
That's
really
your hotspot, yeah.
So it's not just down to money. Yes, it is, but what's your reward here? And I would say anything between 10 and 15 fantasy points a game. That's value.
Like that. Another thing to look at here, another player to look at in the bargain picks, Devin Singletary I quite like the look of as well. He was my close but no cigar here, OG. 5'8", going up against Miami. I know you always love that matchup, whoever is going against Miami. He's averaging 12 fantasy points a game. Back from injury, of course, so he should be good and fresh to go up against a pretty abject Miami run D. And I think, again, Buffalo will dominate that game. Yeah. So I can see Singletary, he'll share the runs with Gore. But I could see him getting in the mix there as well. So
he's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we backed him quite early on in the pod, and he's had an interesting season where you see that how much he's worth has sort of been going up and down and up and down. 5.8 sounds about right, and no, I like that pick from you.
What about Avoid, who you're steering well clear of this week?
Yes, well, this is a bit controversial because I love, and it seems to be bizarrely a pattern that we see that seems to emerge where we go big or we get someone in the stack one week and then the next week It's just no go. Dalvin Cook, exactly. It's the same theory. But this week, I'm avoiding Matt Ryan. Now, interesting, I know, because he's worth £7,900. And yes, he's averaging 24 fantasy points per game. But the problem isn't with Matt Ryan, it's with Julio Jones. So it doesn't look like he will play at this stage. Even if he does, I don't believe... You know, we've seen him in the past, to be fair. Admittedly, he actually shines in an injury sense. You know, he can actually push through. But I don't think personally from and again, this is something we touched on last week. It's about staying engaged. So it's being able to look at that injury report in the real world and seeing what's going on there. Signs point to him not playing, and if he doesn't play, I think their wide receiving quality dips very, very quickly. So I don't believe that we'll see Matt Ryan.
Because didn't you have Ryan and Ridley as your stack last week?
Exactly, and it was Matt Ryan. Very good. Ridley, not so bad.
Really got a score, didn't he?
He got a score, but, you know, Julio Jones, he's probably going to get 2-3 scores, you know, realistically. So that's my concern at this stage. So I'm just going to back the gun instinct on that one and avoid Matt Ryan.
Okay, I'm avoiding Melvin Gordon.
Right.
The Chargers are in a pickle, I think. Against Tennessee, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game because, let's face it, every game against Tennessee seems to end 17-14.
Sure.
One way or the other. Gordon, since the worst holdout in the history of the NFL, has not been at the races at all. He's averaging just 6 points, fantasy points a game. Austin Eckler seems to be the go-to guy there now. I don't think they're going to get much going against Tennessee. 6'6", I suppose, represents quite good value for a player like Melvin Gordon that has a high ceiling and could go off. So it's a risky one, this. But I don't think he's going to go off against Tennessee. I think Tennessee have got their own problems, but it's a decent defense here. I think they'll keep him in check. He's still to get into his groove. Everything is going messy for the Chargers at the moment. So I think for 6'6", you could find better value elsewhere. I'd avoid him.
Well, you know, you're absolutely spot on there, whether it's in the same position or not. You know, earlier on I mentioned someone like a Stefon Diggs for 6.8.
Right.
And you believe that he really can, you know, we saw last week, he really exploded. So yeah, if you're looking at that 6.6 or anywhere up to 7, no, you're totally right.
Find value elsewhere. Yeah. What about defense, OG?
Easy one. Picking the Bills, £5,500. They're taking on those poor old Dolphins, and can I just say, what a entertaining finish to the game it was against Washington. It was elite. It was like watching the Super Bowl. It was the best game of the season. It was unbelievable, but no, I am going for the Bills. But of course, realistically,
it was just like watching the Super Bowl.
It's similar, but less people
they
in
could
the crowd.
still mathematically make it to the Super Bowl, Washington and Miami. There is still a mathematical chance that
in
they
Miami
could.
too. It'll be a beautiful romantic story. But no, also on a serious note, the Bills worth 5.5. I think that you're going to get pretty good value there. And they also, in the physical world, they haven't allowed over 17 points in over 5 games this season. So you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, Miami's they're not going to get over 17 points realistically anyway. So I'm liking the Bills.
Loving that. And 56 points all season, the Bills. They're number 2 in the NFL on that in terms of points allowed. That is a great pick. 5K just feels like a steal. I know there's only a limited margin in terms of the amount of points that defenses can get for you. So there's not a huge amount of wiggle room right there, but I love that pick. For 5K, I think that's great value. You know, 8.8 points, I think they're averaging per season, the defense, which is at the higher end there. Love it. San Francisco, of course, different kettle of fish. $5,000 as well. Up against Washington, as we said earlier, I think they're going to dominate that game.
Sure.
I don't think the Washington offense is going to get a huge amount going against them. And they are a playmaking defense. So in the top 10 in the league for sacks, for interceptions, for fumble recoveries, for pick sixes, these are all, of course, the kind of plays in a game that can earn you big points for your D. So I like the matchup specifically. I think for 5K, that is decent value. In fact, OG, I could have put them in my value pick as well.
When is that going to happen? Because we mention it. At some point, it needs to feature because people are so, relax on the defense. They can, seriously, if you get the right defense in the right game, the right time, you will get unbelievable scoring. So please, back them. Just do it. So we need to remind ourselves we're doing it.
I love that. So just like you doubled down on denim earlier on in the season, you might double down on defenses.
Exactly right. Exactly. You'll see it happen. It's a promise.
But it's on film now
promise.
and on pod. So on pod.
Science
Is
contract.
that a phrase? I'm taking it. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with the show, at the NC Show is how you do that. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Fire questions. We'll do some mailbag next week.
Yes.
Put the OG on the spot. Put him to the test and see what he has in his locker other than that coat. And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, you can find us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and of course our Saturday show. Great lineup this week we've just had. If you want to deep dive into that one, we had Jason Bell in the house on Friday. Iron Mike doing his thing on Wednesday. So some cracking guests this week, each and every week throughout the season, up to and including the Super Bowl. And get involved with Paddy Power Fantasy. If we haven't whet your appetite already, well, I don't know what's going on. Go back and listen to the show again.
Exactly
That is
right.
an order. You can get involved with Paddy Power Fantasy. All kinds of games going on. Free to enter games. And there are cash prizes for those. You can go a little bit bigger. Put in £9, play with the big game, and you could be walking away with a serious chunk of money. Paddy Power Fantasy. Get involved. Daily Fantasy. As the OG said at the start, each and every week, it is a brand new game. Enjoy Sunday. We'll see you Monday. Bye for now.
Hope you enjoyed the Nat Coombs Show presented by Paddy Power Fantasy. There's plenty more where that came from. Just click subscribe to ESPN UK and you won't miss a trick.